I'm going to show you the one metric that tells you whether a brand is growing before it shows up in revenue, live on Puma's own data. This is the measure underneath every model we run. In our own test, it moves months ahead of the revenue impact, and a lot of published work shows the same pattern. Here's why it matters. Available buyers come down to your category, multiplied by who's in market, multiplied by the share willing to buy from you. That last part is brand, the people who already think of you first, and the way you actually see brand move in real number is share of search. When someone searches you by name, they're telling you they're already considering you. If you think share of search is a vanity metric, stay with me because it's exactly the growth your measurement tools are built to miss. And I'll break it down live across 5 platforms, plus you can grab our full growth playbook, the whole measurement pyramid free in the description. This matters now because 20 to 30% of most budget isn't driving incremental growth, and as AI reshapes search, the brands people ask for by name keep their data cheap. So let's get into it. Here's Puma share of search across every platform. So this is a dashboard that we normally use with clients, and obviously here we're using Puma as a demo. Puma is currently not our client, but all of this information is actually public, so we could run this with any companies we wanted, but I wanted to do it with Puma because I think they're doing absolutely great for the moment, and it's a great use case. So we have here Google, Amazon, YouTube, and TikTok and Instagram. So the interesting thing is usually what you see is that YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram tend to drive up values, and then you have Google and Amazon following or highly correlated. Because the thing is, people buy here, and then people are discovering here. And one thing that's interesting is that you can see that YouTube's going up very well, TikTok's going up very well, and then on Instagram, it went down. And what you can see is that on the conversion channel, which is Google and Amazon, you can see that that drop is quite visible. So the great thing about share of search is that it's in contrary to volume that you have here on the bottom, it kind of controls for seasonality because, I mean, there's always seasonality for certain brand. But what I'm saying is that you have less bigger yearly seasonality spike with share of search. So then when we look at cross-platform comparison, what you can do is that you can start to look into the monthly search across all brands for Nike, Balance, Adidas, and ASICS, and so on. And what you can look at it is how cross-platform all of these channels are doing. And if you double-click here, you can see that Puma is actually taking cross-platform a considerable share of the search about those 5 brands. One thing I didn't say is that here we're assuming that those 5 brands represent the whole category. Obviously, it's not true. There's way more brands than this, but for the simplification and for the demo, we will assume that those 5 brands is the main categories. What you do see though is that you have a little compression on here across all channels, probably a bit seasonal. But yeah, what you can see is that Nike is actually going down. Like we don't, oh yeah, okay. So here we have the data on this since June 2025. If you look at the longer view for Google, you'll see that I think we'll have it at the state level. You'll see that Nike is actually going down. The other thing that you can watch, which is very interesting, is how much those brands drive search volume by platform. And as you can see is that those brands are actually very heavy on TikTok. Usually when I work with B2Cs, I don't tend to see TikTok being the highest volume across all brands. So I think that's interesting. And it's across all of them. They all seem to have a media mix that is more or less similar. Little caveat here, I see there's a little data issue with Instagram for New Balance. As you can see, it's not appearing here. But what the great thing is, aside the little issue we have on New Balance here, what you can see is that actually you can see like where brands are pushing the most. And for example, you can see that New Balance is pushing a lot more on Google than the other brand. I think if I do this, yeah, and then you can see that, for example, TikTok, Adidas is the one pushing the most. Oh, but New Balance might be just because the Instagram is missing. Apologize for that. But yeah, if we look at all of them all together, excluding New Balance, because we have that little Instagram issue, we can see that Amazon, for example, Nike has a lot more search on Amazon, for example, than the others in terms of share. So first we did the platform overview where we see what's going on nationally. Then we went cross-platform to see like on a whole more holistically approach nationally This is US data, by the way. It's working. And then what we can do now is that we can actually go dive into the state level. And that's especially for Google. So here we have pulled only the data of the top 10 states because it's quite data consuming and it's only a demo. But the first thing you can see here is the market size. So for example, again, we're assuming that those 5 brands is the category, which is not completely true. But you can see like that, for example, if you total all of these 5 brand searches across states, you see that California, for example, has 62 million searches over the last 12 months, and followed by Texas, and then followed by New York and Florida. So that is helping you to understand where is the big demand. And then what you can do is that you can start to look into the searches. Like here, for example, again, we're looking at the dashboard from a Puma perspective. And here we look at the share of search year on year plus the volume. And you can see that in California, for example, the share should increase by 1.7, which is quite high because if you remember, Puma was actually quite low on the share curve, and 24% plus search volume than last year. You can see 28% in Texas, 49% in Georgia. And this is where you can actually see like how Puma is doing. For example, you can see that in the Northeast, Puma is still growing, but not as much as the other states. And here we just have the share of search persons and volume. So for example, 7%. So when you go from 7% now and you gain 1.7, actually like last year we're like 5.3. So that's quite a significant impact. And you can see the actual searches that Puma is having. And surprisingly, you can see that they have a much bigger share of search around California, Georgia, and a bit lower around here, but it's still not bad. So it means that they have like quite a decent addition share of search here. It's just not growing as much as the other states. And we can also then in a table, which is easier, and then you can dive into the states. For example, we look into California being a very good one for Puma recently. So we can dive into what's happening in California. And as you can see, Google search has a lot more data, more in the past. Then you can see that, yes, Puma is up. It went down, quite significantly down on the last month. I would probably look into the next one to understand what is happening. But as we can see is that Nike over time in California used to be 51% and now it's 32%, which is a massive drop for Nike. So Puma probably took a bit of that. And then you can see also the share of search of Puma dropped recently, and it's probably due to Adidas, which has been relatively stable over time, but have these moments of very high, big spike. You can see that during summer, Adidas has some kind of like a summer seasonality in the share of search. This could be linked to this, or it could be an event. As I explained earlier, yes, some brand can have seasonal effect, probably also mainly because the products that you're looking for, sometimes brand to brands are different. I think we're going to look at this in the keywords in the next video. Nike, for example, is slightly different. You see that it tends to have a spike around Christmas. And I think we'll go to the keywords, and what we'll see is that people actually buy sneakers more for style for Nike, and then Puma is more tennis. Well, let's look at it later. But yeah, so Adidas made a massive spike in share of search in California, and that explained the recent push down in Puma, because New Balance is affected, Nike is affected, all the brands that are actually affected, ASICS a bit less. And then you can track them. We can go also to Georgia and look at the same, see what's going on in Georgia. You have again in Nike this December seasonal effect. In ASICS here, you have like summer effect. And here Puma's going up, like it's more significant and sustained, which is interesting because that shows that the jump that we had in California is actually very localized. That's another thing, a great thing that you can see with geo level analysis. So now we can move to the keyword level. So here we're looking at top keyword level. So obviously you have the Nike, New Balance, Adidas, Ace, you have the brand, but you see New Balance 9060 is the first brand plus shoe that appears. So there's definitely a big demand on for those 9060. You can look at the top keyword, but also the rising queries. So the Nike Mine 001 makes a lot of queries recently, and it wasn't the case before. And the great thing to look at this is here it's less the case because all those shoes have different naming. But we're working, for example, with a supplements company. And so with that keyword tab, they're capable to see, for example, who gets most magnesium queries in their competitors. Magnesium queries, for example, in their competitors list. And so they can understand not only the share of search, but dive more into like what people are actually looking within those brands, which can be very interesting because obviously you understand like where the demand is and you can adapt your product, you can adapt your promotion. And so share of search in the end is a lot more than just having your share of search. Like you can really dive into what people are actually looking for with the brand name. And so for example, you can see that the 530 from New Balance is asked a lot. And the good thing is you can also just like filter out and you can just look at Puma. And then you can see exactly that. For example, you see Puma Speed Cat, Ballet Flat. So you understand that the Speed Cat is probably like the leading shoe at Puma. And then you can do the same with Nike. And then, yeah, one thing, although, is that share of search is not completely perfect within a category, especially if you have a brand that is also selling other things than shoes. The main product request is on the Vomero 5. And so on. I hope you enjoyed that video. Next week, I would highly recommend is obviously the long and the short review from Liz Binet and Peter Field. And if this is something, an insight that you think can be very valuable for your company, or if you want to talk about this, just reach out. Have a great day. Bye.